Hello, salam, and Ramadan Mubarak. Welcome to my brand new channel, hashtag What the Patriarchy, where we're going to be planning the destruction of the patriarchy from its very foundation. We want to cut it off completely from its roots. Because objectively speaking, the patriarchy is bad for the entire universe, and the violence of patriarchy is not limited to gender related matters only, it goes beyond gender. The reason that I'm starting this channel is that first I used to blog very actively, and then hashtag life happened and I kind of stopped. But I miss it very, very much. And sometimes I do occasionally still blog, I still write stuff, but I don't do it as actively as I used to. And I miss that so much. And so I decided, I have the energy again to go at it. So I decided that I was going to, instead of blogging, I wanted to create a vlog instead. But besides just wanting to replace my current blog with a vlog, I'm also really sick and tired of, and I'm concerned about the misinformation about Islam that abounds pretty much anywhere, but especially in Muslim sources on the internet. And that matters because Muslims are going to turn to Muslim sources, or what they think are Muslim sources, authentic Muslim sources, to turn to when they want to better understand what Islam says on a given topic. Because everywhere that we look, we see only male voices, male perspectives, and men's faces too, male interpretations of Islam, and women's interpretations, women's scholarship on Islam, women's perspectives, women's experiences. They're all dismissed as irrelevant or subjective or irrational and emotional and not authentic Islam. And it's not that Muslim women scholars of Islam don't exist today, or that they never existed, or that there aren't enough of us. It's that our voices and our interpretations, both throughout history and in contemporary times, have just been marginalized. They've structurally been marginalized. They've been erased in too many cases. They've been buried amidst all this patriarchy. And I want to help fix this problem. I want to be a part of the movement of Muslim women who are vlogging, who are blogging, who are talking about Islam, who are challenging the male authority that men have decided that they have, and male monopoly on pretty much all of Islam. In this channel, I will be talking about Islam and patriarchy more often than I will about religion generally, or religion and patriarchy generally, or patriarchy generally as well. Because I have a PhD in Islamic studies with a focus on gender, so I know my stuff much more on Islam and gender. I also teach courses in Islam and gender and religion in a religion department at a university. And also, I'm a Muslim person. So Islam, the patriarchy in Islam actually affects my life personally and directly and immediately. So my ultimate aim, like I said earlier in this channel, is to completely demolish the patriarchy. Okay? And I'm going to do that in two ways. The first way is to read and then discuss here, talk about the books that I read that have to do with Islam and gender, that help explain how the patriarchy works and how it has become a part of our tradition historically, and also about our inner practices today, in our understandings and practices and interpretations of Islam today. And how we can actually fix that problem. Okay, and these are books that you may have heard about, that you may have read already, or books that you want to read but you're not sure if you should read them, you're not sure if they're worth your time. So I hope that that discussion will be helpful to you. The second way that I'm going to destroy the patriarchy is to raise questions about and discuss topics that are actually very complicated in the Islamic tradition, right? When we actually look at the Islamic tradition, by which I mean what historical past scholars of Islam have said on those topics, and also what contemporary scholars of Islam say on those topics, as well as how those questions and how the answers of the historical Muslim scholars affect women's lives today. But still, you ask a question and you're presented with a very objective, very supposedly unbiased, yes and no answer. When in fact there's actually a lot of nuance to those responses. And I'm talking about questions like, why can't women lead mixed gender prayers? Which, objectively speaking, by the way, the Islamic tradition is very complicated on this matter, and there were multiple Muslim male scholars, some of whom we respect very much, who said that women can unconditionally lead mixed gender prayers. Or when we ask, why can't we pray and fast when we're menstruating? And it turns out the Quran doesn't actually prohibit us from doing so, but the tradition does. Or when we ask, why can't women marry non-Muslim men? And it turns out that the Quran actually doesn't prohibit us from marrying monotheistic men in other religions. One thing that I'm going to highlight in this channel is that male scholars of Islam, both in the past and today, they have explicitly defied and contradicted and gone against particular Quranic injunctions and teachings and principles and values in order to accommodate patriarchy, because hashtag male privilege, it's a real thing. And what I want to do is to provide alternative responses to questions like those, not just those questions, but to so many questions like that. I want us to know that, you know what, there's actually a very, very complicated conversation on all of these topics, and you're given choices, and you are allowed to choose something that doesn't offend your soul, that doesn't go against your conscience. If something doesn't feel right, if something is unethical, it's probably unethical and you shouldn't be doing it, even if it's Islamic. In fact, we can have a whole separate conversation on it's Islamic, but is it ethical to begin with? Because my understanding of Islam is if something is Islamic, it needs to be ethical as well. And if something is unethical, then it's un-Islamic as well. But we can have a long conversation on the many, many times in which Muslim male scholars have considered or declared something Islamic that's actually unethical. And the idea here is to show Muslim women in particular, but really anyone who's Muslim who is historically marginalized by the historical Muslim tradition and also in contemporary times, because of their gender or sexual orientation or for any other reasons, or because of their perspectives and their practice of Islam, really, that there are alternative ways to practice Islam. And literally everything that we know now about Islam was a matter of a long historical, I'm talking centuries long, debate on pretty much any topic you can think of. And there were scholars, there were competing positions, and some positions won in most cases because they had more political support, and other positions lost, and that the position that lost simply was then it declared as heretic or unacceptable or un-Islamic. So all of Islam really is a matter of debate, and we're allowed to have those debates still. We're allowed to still say, you know what, that position or that particular response doesn't seem Islamic to me, that doesn't seem right to me, that goes against the Quran, or that goes against my understanding of the Quran, and so I'm not going to abide by that particular position. And you're allowed to do that. We're allowed to pick and choose between competing positions, competing interpretations of Islam, and go with the one that makes most sense to us. And if we insist that Islam is a beautiful religion, then that beauty needs to actually be expressed in our interpretations of Islam as well, at least in our teachings of Islam, if not in our practice of Islam as well. So basically, question everything, challenge everything, even if it's a part of the majority, because just because something is a majority does not mean it's correct. Just because a majority says XYZ does not mean the XYZ is the correct position. Especially question things that go against your conscience. And remember that your quest for knowledge, for more correct knowledge, for better knowledge, for more beautiful knowledge is your jihad. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. I will be talking about Amina Wadud's book, Quran and Women, rereading the sacred text from a woman's perspective in my next segment. I hope you'll tune in. Have a happy, beautiful, feminist, inclusive, and spiritually fulfilling Ramadan.